So, thank you for the question. I am going to ramble a bit. I've already made 2 or 3 videos in different backgrounds, in different places, different settings. And I deleted them all because I wasn't making myself super clear. But here it is. I did a post on Facebook saying that what racism is when a person says that's a really good play, but why don't you write about more about your lived experience as a black person? Now, the issue with that is that I wrote something that came from me, and that is a part of my experience. The characters that I create, the way they interact, that is a part of my experience. So when I'm told that that's good, but maybe you should write something about the struggles and traumas of African American living, what you are doing, what one is doing, not you, what one does is bring all of their bias and expectations of what a person of African American background has lived. Because it's not to say that regarding my post, it's not to say that writing about experiences about black African American culture is, it's not about, it's the assumptions placed on it. So, like, for example, if I were to go up to a person who is a lesbian and say, oh, this is a really good play, but you know what, you should write more about what it's like to be a lesbian. I mean, I want to know about, like, what happens, like, you should write a play about what happens when lesbians are persecuted. Like, that's what you should do, because that is your whole entire identity. That's the problem. The identity placed on identities, the identities placed on identity are outward. They come from others. So by saying you can't write about the black experience because you are not black is their representation. Now I want to talk about Young John Lee. Young John Lee, an Asian American playwright. She just did something on Broadway. She wrote Straight White Men. So with your students' ideology of not being able to write about a person or people of another race, she wouldn't be able to do that. Now, I went to an audition years and years and years ago by Young John Lee, and oh my god, the sides were some of the most racist piece of fucking minstrel show that I ever thought in my entire life. And I was like, oh my god, this is disgusting. This is disgusting, and I'm outraged. And you know what I did? I just started following her on Facebook, and I wasn't antagonistic, but this is right after the Trump, and everyone was hating everybody, and they, like saying, well, white people suck, and and it's like, white people bad. It's like, if you just say put black, you sound like fucking racist. But just because now Trump is out, you get to say white people are bad, straight white men. It's like you're being super racist. But we would go back and forth, and she would say things, I would comment, she would delete things. I read her screenplay. We interacted because I wanted to know, as a playwright who has the power and the ability to create and present narratives, from that audition I saw that that narrative was extremely harmful to the black identity. Now the reason I put air quotes is because, again, this is a person on the outside. I'm actually pointing over. I should people on the outside addressing what they believe is the black experience. When we went back and forth, cordially, very cordially, for many years, for about a year, and finally I was like, you know what? Can I read the play was called The Shipment, and I actually suggested, and the Shipment was a play, 4 actors. The first set was kind of a sing-song minstrel show, which is the portion that I saw during the audition, which kind of really offended me. And then the second portion was a more stylized. It was more natural. All African American characters. I don't want to give the whole thing away, but by the end of the play, I emailed her and I said, listen, like, the reason I was been interacting with you is because you putting forth a narrative about black culture. But by finishing your whole entire play, with all African American people or black people or however they choose to describe themselves, melanated, I don't care. By the end of that play, you were able to capture what it's like to be experienced by others. And no one wants to be experienced by others. And playwrights need to not allow their experienced understanding of culture, religion, sexuality be the driving motivator of the characters and the worlds that they're creating. More so, it's the humanity. Now, as you know, my parents are lesbians. So when I was younger, I was writing a love story. Now, instead of writing a love story like, and then he pulled his dick out, and she was like, I don't want to see his dick, and she was like, and he was like, oh, give it, it's like, I didn't say dick. What I focused on was the interpersonal reactions, the give and the take, the what is wanted, what is needed. Now, the play I wrote was garbage. I mean, it was good. It was very poetry, but I did the characters A and B because in my reality, it just in my experience, A and B could have been played by a man or a woman, or a man and a man, and a woman, two men, because love is the issue. Now, when you talk about race, specifically in our country, and specifically in our country, let's not go too crazy. Specifically in our country, race is predicated on skin color, but it's more of a power dynamic, a power issue. So when your students say that you can't write about race or the black experience, they're denying you an understanding of dynamics, interpersonal and relationship dynamics. So let's say you wanted to write here's the thing. Now, I don't write about the black experience or the white experience. I write about the experiences of people. And I'll be really quickly. I wrote two plays. One was called The Rape of Russell Elgin, which is about a woman who I'll skip to it plays through time. So you see him wake up in the room, and she's like, "No, we have two kids. You have a brain injury. We love each other." And then we see all these things, and by the end of the play, we find out that he raped her, and she loved him. She didn't love him. She's crazy. I don't know. See, that's the question. That's another thing about what's going on right now. Plays aren't asking questions. You, Jerry Clark of Syracuse University, taught me that it's important not to preach. It's important not to have at the end of the play a standard. So people are walking away like, yup, black people are good. Yup, black people are bad. Yup, feminism. Oh yeah, no. What you need to do, the things that I write is for when you go and you leave the theater, you can discuss. My point is, that play I did deal with sexuality and gender because she needed I needed them to have kids, so I needed that biological relationship. I mean, now that I think about it, I could have. No, maybe I should. Anyway, I mean, I could now. Wow. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I could have her have adopted the kids, and they couldn't even be fake. But whatever, because then therefore I could have not necessarily a conversation about gender, but I could have a conversation about interaction and relationship. Serialissima is another play that I wrote that takes place in two different parallel universes that exist on top of each other. One is a convent where a woman is driven to insanity, where the nuns kick her out because of her passions, and the other is where a scientist loses his whole life because of his passions. And the issue is passion. These characters could be played by any color. Now, if I were to take these plays and put them with an all-black cast, is that a black play? It doesn't matter. But this doesn't fully address what you're saying. The black experience. Now, let's take, for example, not the Watts riots. Let's take, for example, Black Wall Street, or the Watts riots, or anything, or when they bombed the Black Panthers, or when they created laws saying that Black Panthers couldn't carry guns because they were scared, or when they banned Black Lives Matter from doing a die-in. Now, if I were going to write about that, or if you were to write about that, what would you do? Let's just say you do the die-in. Now, just to give you a brief understanding, Black Lives Matter a couple years ago, they did a die-in in Grand Central, obviously for Black Lives Matter, and the people went cray-cray, and they banned, and they made it illegal to protest. in America. They made it illegal to protest. Peaceful protests, not hurting anybody, but it's illegal. Now, if you were to write that, who knows what you would write? If I were to write that, who knows what I would write? I would probably take a small story, probably like of the people laying down, I would do something. Now, at the end of the play, the audience would be able to go back and say, wow, Jason really was interacting with an issue of African American life, but at the same time, the way he portrayed these characters was a little disingenuous, or a little too minstrel showy. If I'm like, all right, we're gonna go die now because them cops have been shooting us all day. What are you talking about? They've been shooting you. Ain't been shot. Well, you ain't been shot yet. Why don't you pick up some of that watermelon and have it over here? Because I'm gonna need some energy to lay down. Versus the other side, it's like, which is another thing that Jerry Clark from Syracuse University taught me, is the popcorn. And this is like literally one of the founding things that changed my writing style, because as I said, the first play was like, I love you and doth thou bind my soul to your heart. No, the popcorn, the situation, it's the die-in, it's Grand Central Station. Hey, you hungry? Yeah, I'm starving. Why don't you get up and go get some food? Listen, man, I'm trying to be about what we're trying to do here. Listen, I know, but you can get up and get me some food, and you can come back. It's like, well, why don't you go get up? Because now we have the backdrop of the Grand Central. We understand, and obviously there's going to be more to the play. I'm not writing it, but now we have a little interaction of how these two individuals are interacting with each other. The power dynamics, the interactions. That is why I think a white person, an Asian American, a Hindu, I wanted to say a goat, but that's not fair. Any person could write about anything. And if they're a good playwright and they're honest, at the end of the conversation, they should be able to have a conversation about the facts, what's going on. You don't lead people to conclusions. I have not seen Unplanned, the movie, but I know that it leads to a certain conclusion. That has been a disgusting trend in theater in the New York City area for about 5 or 6 years. They're not engaging with intellect. They're engaging with the emotionality of the way people are expected to feel. That's an issue that I have on Facebook a lot. People expect me to feel, expect me to have a certain way, and when I don't interact that way, then they are upset, and then we have discussion. Now, a lot of the things on Facebook are not. They're more, this is that, and if you don't believe that, you're wrong. And if you're wrong, not only are you wrong, you're lesser in terms of intellectual acumen. But I'm getting off. My students feel I have no right to write about the Black experience. So again, yes, you can write about the Black experience, but what you need to be aware of is that once you do, then your biases will be presented and be available for deconstruction and inquisition on top of the narrative of the play if it's not a preachy play. And I don't think that is bad. I do think it shall highlight people's biases and your biases. It's like, sometimes plays are just bad, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't write them. Let me rephrase. Sometimes the plays are just bad, and sometimes plays are propaganda. And if you're writing propaganda, a propaganda play like Birth of a Nation or even things I like Grass, the movie, the documentary, even things that I like, it's like if you are just pushing one narrative, then unfortunately, it's just a narrative, and it doesn't allow for discussion, it doesn't allow for growth. And that's what playwrights do. They present stories and allow for growth. So there's the argument, there's the questions, there's the wondering, which we've lost, I feel. Playwright does play all characters in their mind, and your mind has no color. Now, I like that, because I don't know if you're saying, it's pink, or it's black, I don't know. Oh, that's fucked up. Pink because your brain's pink, or black because it's dark, not pink, that was silly. I do agree that you can write anything, and yeah, I don't think that the character does. Yeah, you have to have all the characters. You have to go through it, and then if you need to, then you do research, and you can. You're a playwright. You can write whatever you want, and if someone says you can't, then they're assholes. Does being black overwhelm all other lived experience? Does being black overwhelm all other lived experience? Now, I'm going to assume that you're talking about my lived experience, and does being black overwhelm it? That is a very interesting question. Does being a woman overwhelm all of her lived experiences? Overwhelm. That's the word. Overwhelm. I think in this day and age, specifically after 2016, the idea of gender or sexuality or race, religion is overwhelming, only in the sense that it is being, it's a cudgel to cut through a great many deal of arguments. Hey, sweetheart. I'm doing something now. Can I call you back? Are you home? Okay, let me give you a call back in a second. I am not about to delete this whole entire video just for that. I forgot. Lived experience. Lived experience. Yes, lived experience. Does it overwhelm? Overwhelm mean take over, flush, make sure that nothing else is the focus. No. Yes. Yes and no. Now, yeah. Now it's real bad. Now, your identity in this day and age is overwhelming. But it's not. It's manufactured overwhelmedness. I mean, I lived in a lesbian household. I moved to Chicago. I worked. I did Second City. I studied my ass off. Again, went to school. And at school, that's when I learned, at college, that's when I learned what racism was. And that was the first time I've actually ever truly experienced it. You know, from teachers locking me out to blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go there. Lived experiences. Now, that's another thing. The lived experiences are the external. Like if I see, I'm not making sense. Just 1 second, sorry. Okay, I'm not making sense. Another thing is that when you no longer have something to say, you should shut up. I do thank you for the question. I have 5% on my battery, so it's going to die, and I don't want to lose this all. To answer your question, does being black overwhelm all of our lived experiences? In America, the narrative is that yes, it does. In the Democratic Party, the answer is yes, it does. Religion, they all overwhelmingly take over everything. Removing identity, individuality, to the point where a black person that says that they like Trump is considered a racist. Yeah, it is overwhelmingly oppressed upon others. But hey, Jerry, write your plays. Write about people. Write about people. And if you want to place it in a relationship that is particularly religious, or I want to write a play about a lesbian couple during during Germany, right before Kristallnacht. They come together. They actually form a relationship, and at the end, the German woman betrays the Jewish woman. Even throughout the play, they've supported and helped each other. So at the end of the play, we're like, why? What's going on? I'm not a lesbian, and I'm not Jewish, and I've never been. Well, I was born in Germany. Anyway, be bold. Peace.